Next session is session 6. Compliances for taking Indian product global. And I welcome the moderator, Ms. Chinmayi Deulgaonkar, Managing Director, CERT India Private Limited. Can we have a big round of applause for her? The moderator, Ms. Chinmayi Deulgaonkar, Managing Director, CERT India Private Limited. And the speakers are, I invite all the speakers on the dais, Mr. Kaushal Khakkar, CEO, KB Exports, Mr. Amarinder Y, Head Crop Development, Food Safe Spices ITC Limited, Mr. Yogesh Mohite, Crop Lead, Horticulture and Plantation, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bayer Crop Science Limited, Mr. Sanket Randive, Head Corporate Quality Assurance, Foods and Personal Care, Marico India Limited, and Mr. Akhil Kotalia, Geography Lead for Food Safety and Quality, Global Emerging Markets, General Mills. Thank you very much for everyone. Can we have a good round of applause for all the speakers and the moderator? And now I hand over the mic to the moderator, Ms. Chinmayi Deulgaonkar. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I guess we need a cup of coffee. Do we need a cup of tea or coffee? Can I request all to just shake your hand like this? Thank you so much. That gives me confidence that you are there. So, how many of you understand Marathi? Raise your hand. Okay, so we have mixed population of, understanding Marathi. So we'll use English, Hindi, Marathi all together. So कुछ दिन पहले की बात है, मेरे एक फ्रेंड ने मुझे फ़ोन किया. He was in the business of नमकीन and sweets. उनकी सोन पापड़ी जा रही थी दुबई और यहाँ से गई और दुबई एयरपोर्ट पे उसको स्टॉप किया गया. It was rejected. रीज़न बताया, उन्होंने उनके क्रैनबेरी सोनपापड़ी में इरिथ्रोसिन नाम का कलर डाला था. तो मैंने उनको पूछा, तो चेक नहीं किया था आपने कि इरिथ्रोसिन कलर ये सोनपापड़ी में जाता है कि नहीं जाता है? तो उन्होंने कहा हाँ चेक किया था, लेकिन जनरल चेक किया था कि इरिथ्रोसिन कलर फूड में अलाउड है कि नहीं है. गूगल ने आंसर दिया हाँ अलाउड है, लेकिन मुझे ये नहीं मालूम था कि दुबई रेगुलेशन में ये कलर सीरियल बेस्ड प्रोडक्ट में अलाउड नहीं है. So entire batch of Son Papdi containers which was sent to Dubai was rejected because of this single color. Right? So there are number of such incidences. हम लोग बात करते हैं एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ाओ, लेकिन एक्सपोर्ट के जितना हमारे पास एक्सपोर्ट का डेटा है, क्या हमारे पास रिजेक्शन का डेटा है? क्या कोई बता सकता है कि हमारे कितने रिजेक्शंस हुए हैं? So if I have to just tell you in nutshell how many rejections we have had in last 3 years, we have more than 8,800 and plus containers being rejected out of various commodities only from India. So UN ने कहा है, एक UN स्टडी किया गया था एंड उसमें कहा गया था कि जितने ज़्यादा कस्टम्स टैरिफ बैरियर है उससे डबल नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर्स है. सो व्हाट डू आई मीन बाय नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर? नॉन टैरिफ बैरियर मतलब एनीथिंग विच इज़ नॉट पार्ट ऑफ कस्टम्स टैरिफ. सो इसके अंदर फाइटोसैनिटरी एंड सैनिटरी, टेक्निकल बैरियर्स, एंटी डंपिंग पॉलिसीज, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंट्रोल, प्राइस कंट्रोल, बहुत सारी चीज़ें आते हैं. बट इन टुडेज पैनल वी विल रिस्ट्रिक्ट अवर टॉक टू टेक्निकल बैरियर्स which are restricting our international trade. So I have a panel of experts who are not just compliance expert, quality, food safety, compliances, regulations, and they has more than 18 plus years of experience, 20 plus years of experience, right from crop management till food processing, and Kaushal sir being with, the largest exporter of fresh fruits and vegetables of India. So we start first with you, Amar. Amar is the lead for crop management, food safe, so food safe spices at ITC. So Amar, ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग नाम है, फूड सेफ स्पाइसेस ITC. तो ये क्यों ऐसा है, मतलब बाकी की चीज़ सेफ नहीं है या how did the name came in?
Thank you, ma'am. Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Thank you, ma'am, for introducing me. So I am Amar. I take care of the procurement of backward integration, and I also take care of procurement of spices, especially the food safe spices. So as you were saying, ma'am, today there is lot of the global trends or global challenges are raising against the food, whichever the products we are trying to export to different nations. So if you see, basically before 20-25 years before, the major issues to export to any country in terms of food quality is basically the pesticide residues, followed by, I think, the aflatoxins or the fungal or mold growth within that. But later on, the food safety stringencies are going up because the customers or consumers who are buying across globe are more, seeking, or they are more desirous, or they are more, trying to be health conscious than balanced nutrition. And also they are trying to have their own preferences in different modes or models, right? So that is how, if you see, as I said before, 10, 15 years or 20 years, it was more about the pesticide residue, so that if you want to export to any nation, we have to either comply or produce within that particular maximum residual levels which are designated or designed. But later on in 2010-15, what happened, then slowly it has moved to the illegal dyes or mycotoxins, allergens, salmonella. These have started coming in because they also felt that the food products which are getting imported with other countries, they're also finding issues with that. Then slowly this has come as one more regulation, and the stringency has started coming in. And now recently, if you see, whole food safety, apart from pesticide residues and residues as well as the aflatoxins, now the basic issues are even more. Like today you have allergens, today you have noxious weed they call, today they call PAs in the product, and today they are also talking about MOAH and MOST and MOHA they call. That is nothing but mineral oil aromatic hydrocarbons, or the mineral oil saturated hydrocarbons. This is not really produced at the ground, but it is because of the supply chain or different things. It is actually, the stringencies are increasing because these are becoming the health conscious for different customers across globe. So that is how ITC, I think many of you know, ITC is one of the biggest or the largest agribusiness division, which has a lot of products like wheat, soya, rice. Then, we have aqua products, we have fresh fruits and vegetables, spices. So we have a lot more. So in this space, what we could also see is that there is a huge demand, or there is a huge surge for the requirements of food safe spices and even organics too. Now last 2 or 3 years, if you see, just in case of spices, I think last year we have exported a value of, I think, $276 billion. So that was the organic space, and it is expected to become 2x within just 2 years. So that is how the stringency is growing, and the need for the consumer or the customer is growing. And ITC has strong backward linkage with the farmers. We work directly, and the quote what we call is like, ITC basically believes in produce the buy rather than buy the produce. So that is what we actually believe in. So we try to work with the farmers to produce what actually we require, or what actually the consumer is requiring, and how we have to actually comply that. So that is the difference between the food safety and the normal product.
Okay, so हिंदी में summarize करो तो आप पेस्टिसाइड ही नहीं, उसके अलावा बहुत सारी अदर जो नॉन टैरी बैरियर्स है, जैसे एलर्जन है या फूड सेफ्टी में जैसे एफ्लाटॉक्सिन्स है, दैट आप उसका ख्याल रखते हैं, इसीलिए the company name is on a broader perspective. So that makes an interesting point to you, Akhilesh. Akhilesh is working with General Mills, and Akhilesh handle करते हैं 90 से ज़्यादा countries के regulations को. कितने products के लिए Akhilesh approximately?
There are tons of products there.
Tons of product. So tons of product for 90 countries regulation. So I think जो लोग compliance में है हम कहते हैं कि उनके बाल एक तो रहते नहीं है या वो जल्दी सफ़ेद होते हैं. So that is how we see the this thing. So having said this, I mean jokes apart. So where do you see are the main regulatory challenges? From for a food processing industry, क्योंकि farm level पे pesticide या handling practices इससे ज़्यादा होता है, but when it comes to food processing, वहाँ पे क्या regulatory challenges होते हैं?
Sure. So मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश को मिक्स करके कोशिश करता हूँ उसको रेस्पॉन्ड करने का. एंड चिन्मयी, आई थिंक मेरे बाल सफ़ेद कम हो रहे हैं, उल्टे ज़्यादा हैं.
नहीं, you have maintained it very well. So we know you have hands on the regulation.
So मैं स्टार्ट करूँगा बिकॉज एग्रीकल्चर हमारे इकोनॉमी की रीढ़ की हड्डी है और बैकबोन है, राइट. दैट्स व्हाट वी हैव बीन हियरिंग आज पूरा दिन और शायद कल भी. और एक्सपोर्ट स्टैंड पॉइंट एग्रीकल्चर हमारे जीडीपी को एक बिग कंट्रीब्यूशन करता है. and one of the largest principal exported commodity is agricultural related products. लेकिन अगर हम कंपेयर करेंगे कि हमारा कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है इन टर्म्स ऑफ ग्लोबल ट्रेड, इट्स वेरी स्मॉल. एंड व्हाई इज दैट? Despite we hearing that we are producing 330 metric ton or 390 metric ton of food grains plus fruits, vegetables, milk, spices, whatnot, then why do we have such a small contribution, right? And one of the reasons for that is कि हमारे जो products हैं when it comes to global quality and food safety norms उनको meet नहीं करते आज की डेट में. Mainly as Amrinder said, pesticide या खरपतवार नाशक या कीटनाशक जो chemicals हैं उनका levels हमारे product में कई बार बहुत high होता है. या फिर हमारा जो रेगुलेटरी कॉम्प्लायंस है फॉर माइकोटॉक्सिन्स उसका मैनेजमेंट ठीक से नहीं होता है. लेकिन अगर आप इस प्रॉब्लम को पूरा होलिस्टिकली देखेंगे तो उसमें प्रॉब्लम सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि बाहर के रेगुलेशन बहुत स्ट्रिंजेंट हैं और हमारे नहीं हैं. एक्चुअली हम लोग को थोड़ा सा इनसाइड व्यू लेना पड़ेगा. सो दैट्स माय फर्स्ट पॉइंट कि लेट्स हैव अ लुक एट व्हाट्स हैपनिंग ऑन द इनसाइड. सो अगर आप पिछले 5-6 साल की बात करेंगे तो FSSAI जो हमारा फूड रेगुलेटर है उन्होंने बहुत सारे नए रेगुलेशंस पब्लिश किए हैं, बहुत सारे रेगुलेशंस को अपडेट किया है. आप GMO के रेगुलेशन देख सकते हैं, ऑल्दो इट्स स्टिल अ ड्राफ्ट. पैकेज प्रोडक्ट के रेगुलेशंस देख सकते हैं. लेकिन उसका जो ऑन ग्राउंड इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है दैट इज स्टिल अ क्वेश्चन. स्पेशली ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर में हम लोगों ने बहुत काम किया है जहाँ पे FSSAI ने रियली they have created policies around testing the food products for compliance. But what about the farmer level where everything starts? तो ground level पे हमारा execution is still lacking. हम लोग अभी भी farmer के level पे monitoring, surveillance, education नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. I think somebody raised a valid point कि language is a barrier. So, but I think more than language, उसका understanding is also equally important. I mean, I can give a Marathi translation to a farmer who may be producing wheat, but उसका interpretation करना is again a challenge. So that's my first point. The second thing is where I will take an outside view कि बाहर क्या issues हैं. So of course globally अगर आप regulations को study करेंगे तो काफी inconsistencies हैं उसमें. And there are various reasons. I mean there are good, bad, ugly reasons. People try to protect their own business just like what we do. They want to promote their local industries, and sometimes there could be political reasons. I want to take only 3 examples which pose a major threat today for the exports from India. The number one is actually toxins and contaminants जो अमरिंदर ने बात किया. There is some data which I was looking into. This year alone, Europe ने 1300 notification published किए with respect to Indian products. Out of that, about 1100 are only related to pesticides and contaminants. Of course, a large part of that is rejections also. The second biggest issue is Salmonella and E. coli, which talks about the sanitary practices and food safety aspects. That's the second most biggest issue in terms of the notifications. So that's the toxins and contaminant space. Now, relating this to the first point, oftentimes जो product बाहर जाके fail होता है, वो actually India के लिए भी compliant नहीं है. One big example is a chlorpyrifos example in wheat. Oftentimes our products fail in Europe or other markets, but actually they are not even compliant to Indian regulations. So that is not even fit for us, right? The second example I'll take is GMOs. So I am sure a lot of you understand what GMOs are, genetically modified organisms. Genetically modified organisms ka regulation is so varied across the globe that sometimes it works in our favor, sometimes not. US की अगर बात करते हैं तो US में GMO regulation, GMOs are very widely used. Almost everything corn in US is GMO. तो आपके लिए easy है, क्योंकि India is still following a restricted policy around GMOs, so you can do that. But when it comes to Europe, the limit is 0.9%, and that too with some 60 number of events which are allowed in Europe. Switzerland, again same limit, 0.9%, but they only allow some 10-12 events to be present in that 0.9%. So very, very stringent. Turkey looks at this as a very, very different way. They look at anything which gets imported into Turkey. If it is found to have GMOs, this is seen as an act of bioterrorism. So very stringent, zero GMOs. So I think that's where that's the second example where this poses a real threat to some of our businesses. Not so much for India, for most of the countries except for Turkey, but I think it's a positive. The third piece again is that today the regulatory limits which have been set up in various different regulations, whether we talk about India or even Europe or US, they are not based on scientific evidences. So if somebody says that a 0.01 level of chlorpyrifos is the maximum limit of this pesticide in atta, it is not based on a human study that anything above that is unsafe for food. Generally, the limits are defined based on what a test method can detect. So the more stringent your test methods become, that which actually becomes a regulatory limit rather than the actual human safety data. So I think those are the three factors which I would say they really pose threats to our exports from India.
Absolutely.
There are many more, but I thought I'll just bucket them into three different.
Absolutely right. I mean, इन्होंने जो अभी GM कहा, so any crop that you can think of which is GM crop, which is produced in India, from the audience. Yes, sir. Cotton, exactly. So एक सवाल आएगा मन में कि कॉटन है, कॉटन तो कपड़े के लिए यूज होता है, उसका फूड से क्या रिलेशन है? So what is the food relation of cotton? Cotton seed oil. And entire spice industry and pickle industry is mostly on cotton seed oil. So जब ये cotton seed oil जिसके अंदर GM है कि नहीं है हमें पता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि laboratories के पास 0.9% टेस्ट करने की कैपेसिटी है कि नहीं है, that is where we start facing problem. So with this I come to you, Sanket, and Sanket is the corporate quality head at Marico for not just food but also personal care. So as a farmer हम लोग जो produce करते हैं उसका बहुत सारा element even personal care में जाता है. So there is also a notion, Sanket, कि especially in the food industry, मैं जो produce कर रहा हूँ मैं भारत में नहीं बेच रहा हूँ, क्योंकि nowadays export is being promoted, so there are a lot of export oriented units. So मुझे भारत में बेचना ही नहीं है, मैं तो export कर रहा हूँ. So why I have to follow law of the land? This is generally a notion. So how do you think the loopholes can be mitigated?
Yeah, so I think a very right question, and just to start with, जैसे ये जो notion itself is a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, I would say rather, because it's not that something which I'm producing in India and the law of the land of India doesn't I don't have to abide to, or even my export kind of countries where I need to send those products, whether it's a foods or any other products, so they don't need to match to that kind of a compliance with the regulations. Now having said that, what typically happens and what we have seen, जो हमने देखा है काफ़ी बार, कि मेरा कोई distributor रहता है, हमारा कोई distributor रहता है offshore countries में, okay, and lot of products are going through that channel. So whenever that supply chain or let's say kind of supplies happen, it comes back कि my distributor is very comfortable shipping those products, selling those products in the market. They have certified and they have got the licenses, okay, but that's not assuring anything on the safety of our product as far as the brand is concerned with. So what happens typically is that as a brand of Marico, let's say, or let's say any other organization, So there is always a regulatory watch or regulatory watchdog, जहाँ पे सारा product scan होता है, and whatever like Akhil said, or even ma'am said, that a lot of issues in the kind of concerns happening in terms of the recalls and those kind of food safety concerns. So those parameters are something which are regularly watched for, right? And those parameters may not be covered completely, if we are having a mindset that this is only a kind of a produce which is going for India, and it is not going to impact other EU nations or Australia, New Zealand, or the US, UK, Canada, or anywhere in the world today. They have separate. In fact, you'll be surprised to know a lot of countries. I'm not saying of the developed countries, but a lot of developing or lesser than developing countries even have stringent norms which they have picked from the codex, which they have picked from the US FDA, US, UK, those kind of regulations. And rightly as put by Amrinder and Akhil, that yes, lot of things in terms of to start with the value chain actually, what we say is a value chain. So today something is there which I may have a controllable over it. So my farm produce are my kind of regulations penetrated up to the farm levels. So is my kind of banned kind of a pesticide usage, is the list readily available with the farmers and everybody who are day in day out using those kind of pesticides, insecticides. Because lot of what may happen is that the kind of banned pesticide list which exists for India may be very different for a different country. And while the produce coming to the organization is very same. So when we design our specifications, so we have to holistically look on each and every pesticides, whether it's covered or not, each and every contaminant which is coming from, जहाँ से soil से, water से, जहाँ से भी आता है, because lot of processes what happens, this kind of, let's say whether it's pesticides, aflatoxins or crop contaminants or colorants, not colorants rather, but other issues are mainly, once they percolate, they are very extremely difficult to remove, or rather it can't be removed from the produce. Unlike my microorganisms, which I may have a kill step, in some kind of a foods, I may not have a kill step in some kind of food. So कोई process में रहेगा जहाँ पे मैं heating करता हूँ, sterilization करता हूँ, जहाँ पे micro I can take care. But once heavy metals, pesticides and everything which goes through, it can be removed from those kind of products. Okay, so that kind of a notion, and we have seen that. And ma'am, what you said, it usually impacts, the kind of brand. There have been recalls from the brand, renowned brands, whether it's, a kind of food product or a spice product or a vegetable product, which got, hold up into the offshore countries, and lot of, UN cry, happened, and a kind of media escalation and everything. And today, it is impacting the brand. So overall, if the brand is getting impacted, my complete backward chain, including my suppliers and everybody get impacted in terms of supplying those produce to the brands, as well as, ensuring that India is a safe organization for, those kind of typical offshore exports is highly reliant on kind of a things. So I think that is my, take on.
Well said. And actually, it's not just the pesticide. मुझे एक चांस मिला था लॉस एंजलिस एयरपोर्ट पे इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स को कैसे वेरीफाई करते ये चेक करने का. एंड देन वन ऑफ द थिंग द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट दे सेड दैट कि जब उन्होंने पूछा आप कहाँ से हो, मैंने कहा इंडिया से है. अभी भारत कहना चाहिए. आई मीन तब सो इट वाज लाइक कि India is a very high risk country for us. This was the first reply when they got to know that we are from India. And then we said आपका 2% प्रोडक्ट, they handle a product of approximately $30 billion. उसमें से सिर्फ 2% प्रोडक्ट जो है वो physically segregate होता है for inspection. And when we ask them how do you select which is 2% of the produce that you need to segregate, the kind of methodologies and the methods that they are adopting, that was mind-boggling. So I mean, it is another topic, but one of the things that I would like to share is कि प्रोडक्ट के अंदर पेस्टिसाइड तो दूसरी बात है. जब हमारा प्रोडक्ट पैक हो रहा है उसके अंदर अगर किसी मतलब चूहे का कंटामिनेशन हुआ है, हाउ डू दे चेक इट? दे विल जस्ट पुट यूवी लाइट, दे विल टेक द डिटेक्टर, एंड इफ द डिटेक्टर हैज डिटेक्टेड यूरिक एसिड, आपका प्रोडक्ट अंदर कितना भी अच्छा हो, इट विल बी रिजेक्टेड देयर एंड देयर इटसेल्फ. These are the months which are, so हमारे लिए प्रोडक्ट सिर्फ अच्छा ही नहीं बट उसका एक्चुअल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन भी काफ़ी ज़रूरी है. सो विद दिस आई कम टू कौशल सर. एंड KB export is one of the largest fresh vegetable exporter in India. So I would like to hear from you. आप global compliances for your company कैसे कर रहे हैं? You have a presentation, so please take us through that. There is a mic.
स्क्रीनवरती आलं नाही. स्क्रीनवरती आलं पाहिजे ना. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is my perspective and our company perspective on how we deal with compliances for taking our Indian products globally. So there are three aspects that I wanted to cover. First is the certification aspect. There are a lot of certificates required before we commence exports to certain countries and certain customers. And what are those ones, and are there any customer specific ones? Then there are certain compliances regarding pests. So we deal with a lot of different products which are considered as quarantine products or quarantine pests on those products. So how do we deal with those challenges? And then of course the pesticide MRLs in specific, both at a country stage as well as a customer. So on the certifications, there are four aspects that we have to deal with: the farming certificates, the food safety and hygiene, so especially pack house certificates, ethical standards, and then also sustainability standards now. On the farming side, so Global Gap is a universal standard that most European growers or European customers actually insist that we follow. So it's like a passport for shipping. If you don't have it, you can't access supermarkets in Europe. Then there is the pack house certificate. So primary one of them is BRC, but then there is also IFS and a lot of other ISO standards which are also acceptable. But especially for UK, which is our biggest trade partner, we would generally go for BRC. BRC stands for British Retail Consortium. Then on the ethical side, Global Gap has an own certificate called GRASP, which is a module within Global Gap. And there is also the SMETA, which is a 2-pillar or a 4-pillar option. So these are also social or ethical standards where we ensure, for example, things like do we use child labor or not, or do we ensure that all our vendors are paid on time. So these are the things which are verified in these social standards. And then of course sustainability, which is a very upcoming aspect which is now happening globally. Just some indication of the certificates that we have achieved within our company. So we have had a lot of certification partners. We use a lot of agencies, and Food Chain ID is actually one of them. So Global Gap, then Organic, BRC of course, GRASP as I already mentioned, SMETA, and then LEAF. LEAF is one of the sustainability standards which is insisted by some, so it's called Linking Environment and Farming. And this is again a standard used by European retailers. There is also customer specific certification. So for example, this is actually from, this is an auditor from UK. This is for Tesco food standard. So it's one of our customers. So supermarkets, especially in Europe, are competing for consumers' budgets, and they are making sure that consumers come to their supermarket and not to their rivals. So what they are doing is beyond what everyone else follows. They go a step higher and they ask for suppliers to certify to their own standards. And every retailer may have their own standard that we have to fulfill beyond Global Gap or beyond BRC. So TFS is actually both a farming and a pack house standard, and it's called Tesco food standard. And then we face these audits very regularly, and many a times they are more stringent than the generic standards. So this is how retailers are differentiating themselves when it comes to the competitive space in Europe. So I'm moving to the second part, which is the pest, and then also the pest versus pesticide contradiction. So if you realize, if there are a lot of pests on a product, we can kill them with pesticides, but then you again fall on the wrong side of the MRLs that all these countries follow. So pests and pesticides both are contradictory objectives, and it's very difficult to find a balance. There is one way which I'll speak at the end, but just trying to highlight what kind of pests you typically deal with. So for example, fruit fly, which is found commonly on mango, guava, or for some other Indian vegetables also. We have the hot water treatment in Europe, which is a 60-minute dip for at 48 degrees Celsius, or for Japan it is a vapor heat treatment, or for USA it's an irradiation gamma ray treatment, or for UK now there is no treatment. So UK incidentally has become very relaxed on the pest side, especially because after Brexit there is no need for UK to protect European agriculture. So that's why trading with UK has become that much easier. But then there are a lot of other challenges in other countries that we have seen, and it's much easier said than done. So these treatments are quite complex in their own ways, and especially for US irradiation, you need an inspector to come from US to India and actually supervise the treatment. So these are quite a lot of complexities involved there. Just some indicative pictures of how these treatments look like. So the left one is our pack house where we do it in-house. The vapor heat is a very expensive machine from Japan. And then the irradiation is controlled by the Baba Atomic Research Center, and there are treatment plants authorized all over the country. So the other pest is stone weevil. Stone weevil is another pest which is found on Indian mango, and you cannot kill it with hot water. So you have to use irradiation for US. Surprisingly, no such requirement for Europe because it's not a quarantine pest for their geography. They already have this in their own area, so they don't necessarily require protection against it. So just from a pest management perspective, in terms of market access, for example, India was asking for market access of pomegranates to Australia, and fruit fly was a focused product for Australia. So when these country-to-country negotiations happen, there were three things that they said they can allow. One is area freedom, which is not possible out of India for fruit fly. Then they mandated a cold treatment, which is 1.67 degrees Celsius for minimum 18 days, which is impossible for pomegranate to survive. And then the third is irradiation, which is not really worthwhile because Australian consumers are not accepting irradiated product as a preferred way to consume. So effectively, even though we have market access, we don't have market access. We can't really ship pomegranates to Australia. And to some extent, I think there has to be better interface between the industry and the government to ensure that whatever market access negotiations happen, they should be viable and practical also. This is just a highlight of how we manage pests at our end. So we use preventive spraying using especially organic sprays. These are blanket sprays, so every 4th or 5th day we may adopt those. Then we would do a crop walk, and this is primarily for vegetables. So in crop walk we assess the economic threshold level at which, if breached, we need to undertake a curative chemical spray. And after that we follow a predetermined pre-harvest interval and then undertake the harvest. So this is a typical cycle that everyone follows when it comes to adhering to the pesticides. And I am now moving to the pesticide section, where we have actually the solution for managing the pest and pesticides effectively is using organic botanical pesticides. So botanical extract based pesticides is what we make ourselves now, and we are now of course offering it not just for the self consumption but also for farmers at large. This project is called KB Bio, in which we are using a lot of botanical extract based pesticides. Another pesticide based aspect which I wanted to highlight is the maximum residue levels, and are they enough? In fact, they are not enough. You need to actually go well beyond in certain cases. So for example, carbendazim on pomegranate has a residue of 0.1, but there are a lot of retailers which say that we will follow only 1/3 of MRL. So Lidl in UK is a German retailer operating in UK. They insist on only 1/3 of MRLs as a common blanket rule, and they expect all suppliers to follow, which is not easy many a times. In fact, there is another retailer called Sainsbury's which has a very ambitious plan. They wanted no residue on their product by 2020. I think this rule or this vision came to them about 10 years ago. Then they realized it's impossible and they phased it out. But just highlighting how each retailer has its own norms, and we have to actually follow many of those in a great detail and complexity to ensure that we are able to continue our market access. That's a very brief summary of how we deal with our market access and our global compliance challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So pesticide is predominantly becoming one of the major issues. So Amar, question to you quickly, 30 seconds. What message, because we have a number of FPOs here, so what message you will give on crop management, to mitigate this pesticide issue?
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as sir was saying, see today if you see, there is a process or there is a kind of sequential approach for any kind of pest control or disease control. But today you see, if any farmer finds any pest or disease on his crop, he invariably goes for pesticide application. So he is not really interested to look at whether this pest attack or the disease is really attained the economic threshold level or not. And second thing, whether I have to go with with the pesticide application, or should I go with some kind of biological control or some kind of mechanical control, or maybe I can control, with doing some kind of, physical barriers. Then I can approach for the pesticide. So that is completely, missing out. And apart from that, there is also one more biggest issue is that the pesticides what farmers are trying to use, they are mostly trying to either go by the recommendation of the local retailers or dealers, or the push from their side, because they try to push both, one the actual pest or the disease control, and the other one would be some or the other bio which might be a biostimulant or something else. So what I feel is that, and apart from that, they are also trying to push more of the old generation molecules. So it is the need of hour is that today, as I said, it is not just only the pesticide residues and all those things, it is also impacting the sustainability or biodiversity. That is how the pest outbreaks and all those things we are actually envisaging in and day in, day out. So what I feel is that whenever we are trying to do any kind of integrated pest management, we should follow a sequential flow. We should first understand what is that pest, what is its incidence, then whether I have to go with the different alternate practices, then the final thing is the pesticide. And when it comes to pesticide also, I always recommend that, or it is a humble request to every farmer, FPOs or farmers, that they have to use new generation molecules or green labeled molecules. Because whenever any pesticide companies are trying to launch any new product into the market, they are also equally responsible for the sustainability or the biodiversity or the environment and all the causes. So if you still use the old generation molecules, they have the impact of sustenance, or they have the impact on the crop for years together. But whereas the recent generation molecules or the green labeled molecules, they are effective on the pest or disease. At the same time, they are also getting fastly degraded. So I always suggest or request every farmer, FPOs and FPOs or FPCs to take care that if you are using any kind of pesticide application, use in right mode, and the newer molecules are the green labeled molecules. That is what I can say, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And to summarize it, पेस्ट दिसली तर एकदम पेस्टिसाइड टाकू नका, इव्हॅल्युएट इट की खरंच त्याच्यावरती पेस्टिसाइड ॲप्लिकेशन गरज आहे का, आणि त्यानंतर जे नवीन जनरेशन पेस्टिसाइड्स आहे ते बघा, कारण AMR म्हणजे अँटी मायक्रोबियल रेजिस्टन्स हा खूप मोठा प्रॉब्लेम सुरू झाला आहे, आणि दॅट इज व्हॉट इज बी ही सेइंग की go for the new age pesticides and don't follow the old one because there is already resistant developed. So quick 30 seconds question to you because I am getting the alerts, right? So just like there is a problem at crop management on pesticide, there is also a problem of fraud when it comes to food processing. So, and this fraud can be right from masking the country of origin till any level, right? So how was the regulation looking at this, and how do you see the regulation closing the loop?
So fraud generally is for monetary gain, मतलब पैसा थोड़ा फायदा बनाना है, but recently कई बार हम लोग अपने फायदे के चक्कर में दूसरे का नुकसान भी करते हैं. So one of the examples is this melamine thing that happened few years back, which led to a lot of babies falling sick and some died as well. I think Chinmay, regulatory framework has always existed in terms of controlling and having regulations around against food fraud, right? I think the current need is more around company understanding the need to control and manage their own brand reputation. So understanding the vulnerability assessment, finding out the weak points, and then of course creating mitigation strategies. But most importantly, उनको check करना कि वो mitigation strategy काम कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा. That's most critical. Because sometimes you might just sell a product which is only meant for India, send it to UK. How does it matter? It's a food product that Indians will eat. या जाके UK में कोई खाएगा या US में कोई जाके खाएगा. Doesn't matter, right? But just done for a food, for an economic gain is called as a fraud. So how do you control those things through your labelings to make sure that you have warnings that this is only for India, not meant for export? So those are the kind of small things we can implement, put in place to prevent it. But I know that they are still being bypassed. So checking and verification and validating is something which is very, very, very critical.
So one of the example of food fraud, maybe you would know, 2021 में India was blacklisted by EU for soya lecithin. सोयाबीन जो ग्रो करते हैं उसका मल्टीपल प्रोडक्ट्स बनता है, उसका लेसिथिन इज वन ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट, एंड इंडिया वाज ब्लैकलिस्टेड. डू यू नो द रीजन? द रीजन वाज पीनट कंटामिनेशन. अभी सोयाबीन का और पीनट का क्या रिलेशन है? अगर आपको याद होगा 2021 में या बिगिनिंग ऑफ 2022 में सोयाबीन के प्राइसेस 10,000 रुपीज़ पर क्विंटल तक गए थे, जो नॉर्मल 3 से 4,000 रुपये के रेट में रहते. एंड जब ये इतने ज़्यादा हेवी लेवल पे हो गए थे तो नाइट्रोजन कंटेंट को रिटेन करने के लिए हमारे यहाँ के क्रशर्स ने सोयाबीन के साथ में उसको पीनट भी डाला. एंड पीनट इज़ एन एलर्जेन इन यूरोप. पीनट कंटामिनेशन मतलब इट्स अ डेडली थिंग. अब कुछ भी चलेगा लेकिन पीनट कंटामिनेशन नहीं चलेगा. सो जितने हमारे यहाँ से सैंपल्स गए, जो वहाँ पे लेसिथिन जो है वो चॉकलेट में यूज़ होता है, बिना लेसिथिन के चॉकलेट बनता ही नहीं है. that got into chocolate और chocolate में allergen आ गया, and that resulted into back tracing till banning India for soybean export. Till that level it goes. So fraud is a very dangerous, I mean, it's because as you rightly said, it's intentional, right? So coming to you, Sanket, it's, हम लोग जब क्वालिटी कहते हैं, सो नॉर्मली सब लोग सिर्फ फूड प्रोसेसिंग के ऊपर देखते हैं, बिकॉज वी आर नंबर ऑफ एपीओज हियर. What is your advice to them? Can quality be designed, you know, at farm level? Can that be implemented at farm level?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, I would say, because as I already said, you know, the quality starts from farm to fork, and that is what farm is. And trust me, it may look like a slightly simpler thing, but very well, you know, like complying with the quality of the farm is a very complex kind of a phenomenon. So my typical, thought over here is that one is my controllable, one is my non-controllable. So non-controllable as in, it may have a like variety of, let's say, concerns, complexities and everything. So ranging from the usage of pesticides, ranging from lot of things, which of course, it takes time, it takes a humongous effort, you know, to keep on inculcating those practices across the value chain, whether it's a farming, storage, okay. The other part, yes, the enforcement, what we say, how do we enforce it? How do we make it more aware, basically? So, you know, my complete scheme of testing, rather, I would say. So, even if I'm buying today a carrots or a dry fruits or a grapes or let's say vegetables, fruits, anything. So, what are my typical kind of a contaminants which would come? It's not only related to India, but yes, as I already mentioned, you know, in fact, if something is there in the codex, something is there in the US FDA, the most stringent, like today, in the codex, I think not less than 160 plus pesticide list which is available, which we can, you know, very well scan for each and every product. Okay, so by quality and design is something which we should build for each and every RM. So now when we, RM as in raw material, so what जो भी raw materials अपना आता है, so comprehensive kind of a testing plan for every raw material. Today, हो सकता है मेरा FSSI हो गया, मेरा, you know, egg mark हो गया, whatever other, you know, kind of EPIDAs and all. So they may not ask, वो नहीं पूछेगा कि मुझे बाकी के 50 आप बताइए कि contaminants आपके पास क्या क्या है उसके अंदर. But as a manufacturer, as a buyer, or rather as a seller, we should be also completely aware of those kind of, you know, blind spots which we call. So what are those kind of, you know, contaminants which are hidden from our eyes, which can like, you know, create those kind of issues when they are exported to the other markets, offshore markets. So basically, how can we typically devise a very stringent mechanism across monitoring at least of those kind of issues? It can be quantitative, like a very high scale kind of a spectra analysis and AS analysis and everything, which is again a high end kind of a thing. It can be qualitative, which are rapid kits detection kind of a thing, easily available, easily, quickly they can show me some kind of a, you know, colorimetric test, which helps me to understand whether my produce or let's say whatever I'm selling is right or no. Okay, and whenever I'm manufacturing a, let's say either a food or a buying, you know, those kind of products for food manufacturing, a comprehensive specifications. Okay, it may involve a bit of costing, yes, थोड़ा बहुत costing बढ़ेगा पहले, you know, क्योंकि testing का costings है, analytics का costings है, but a comprehensive specification at least to know whether like what sir said, like let's say मेरे grapes में carbendism है कि नहीं है, chlorpyrifos है कि नहीं है उसके अंदर. Okay, so those kind of things will help me to first is eliminate at the first level. Okay, and then make my system compliant so that I ensure that going ahead, you know, I'm complying with the regulations of not only India but my global kind of you know, requirements, even if I'm supplying whether to an Indian manufacturer or a kind of offshore manufacturer, or you know, I'm itself buying, repacking and, you know, kind of selling it across as my own brand. I think so that is all the, you know, overall mechanism which we should definitely evolve whenever we are designing you know, this kind of a manufacturing product or a kind of a product to be sold off.
Well said, well said. And you have one piece of advice to the crowd here. Kaushal sir.
So I can obviously speak from my agri perspective. You know, food safety is absolutely paramount, not just for the export market, but more so for the domestic market. I think we are all consuming the same food that we are exporting, and we have to be very mindful of how we go about it. Unfortunately, I've seen examples where farmers segregate between what they consume for home and what they sell. So I would say that, you know, there has to be one law, whether it is for domestic or for export, and food safety should be paramount, non-compromisable, which should probably be driven by the government in terms of some regulation. If a doctor is required to undergo several years of training and then undertake his medical profession, I think farming should have some similar standards where we ensure that the farmers are educated, they are aware of all the pros and cons, and then they are able to undertake the right decisions for their own farms. Thank you.
थैंक यू सो मच, वेल सेड, एग्जैक्टली. सो एक मुझे कोट याद आ रहा है यूएस एफडीए के कमिश्नर का. उन्होंने कहा था कि नॉर्मली रहता है ना कि क्वालिटी कंप्लायंस इज़ वेरी एक्सपेंसिव, तो उन्होंने कहा था कि इफ़ यू थिंक कंप्लायंस इज़ एक्सपेंसिव, ट्राई नॉन कंप्लायंस. Right? So it's a shared responsibility. Just before we close the session, we all know that, we are all contributing to this. So just raise your left hand. Can I request panelists also to raise your left hand? Thoda bada. Not all are raising, come on, thoda sa. Okay, now raise your right hand. Okay. Now hold the hand of your neighbor. Can you hold the hand of your neighbor? Sir. Now raise your left hand. Challenging, right? So that's how we contribute. So now if we have to raise it, we have to put all the efforts together so that, we have our, India as one of the most important export nation. Thank you so much, and open for question and answer.
थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन. आप कृपया यहीं पे बैठे रहें. मंच वो नहीं जहां पर चेहरों की तादाद हो, मंच वो नहीं जहां पर चेहरों की तादाद हो, मंच वो है जो विचारों से आबाद हो, जो विचारों से आबाद हो. और मेरे ख्याल से दिस 14th AgriCorp conference is filled with new thoughts and insights. Thank you very much for this marvelous session. आगे बढ़ते हुए मैं दरख्वास्त करती हूँ डायरेक्टर जनरल बॉम्बे चैम्बर श्रीमान संदीप खोसला जी से कि कृपया वो मंच पर पधारें. I request him to felicitate the moderator Ms. Chinmayi Deulgaonkar, Managing Director, CERT ID India Private Limited. Thank you very much, ma'am. And now I request Chinmayi ma'am to felicitate Mr. Kaushal Khakkar, CEO KB Exports, Mr. Amarinder Y, Head Crop Development, Food Safe Spices ITC Limited, Mr. Sanket Randive, Head Corporate Quality Assurance, Mr. Akhil Kotalia, Geography Lead for Food Safety and Quality, Global Emerging Markets, General Mills. And now a time for a group photo, please. Thank you very much.